Tonfanau camp was built, I think it was 1939, just before the Second World War. It's Royal Artillery, and then it became, after that, junior leaders for officers. And the army camp, my father, when he was called up, 1956, 57, he was with the REME, electrical engineers, and he was stationed back in his own town, into the army camp there. It was very cold in them buildings in the winter. It was just coal heaters in them. And the town relied on the camp a lot. And to lose that in the 60s, and we were so pleased to see it being used again, and hopefully that they would have been there longer than they were. But no doubt they went to better pastures and old billets which were made of wood and obviously quite cold. Yes, it must have been a very big shock to them to come to something like that. It could look like a prison camp, I suppose, with, you know, it was an army camp. There was a lot of them there who were crying and that, and they wanted to go back to Uganda, knowing that they couldn't. And basically they didn't know what was coming their way. We learned from the school, actually, and they told us, you know, that they were being deported from Uganda and to welcome them in. At that time, really, we never saw many Asians or anything in the town. So it was quite exciting, you know, and then when we did meet them, they seemed to be very friendly, but I can always remember they felt the cold very much. You know, coming from Uganda with the heat there to actually to come to town. I can't remember what time of the year, but they found it very, very cold, and they were wearing quite a few jackets that people had given them in the town. And the colours of the saris and the turbans and the young lads were wearing, we got quite jealous of the young lads because they were pinching all our girlfriends. But they were integrated quite well. They were only here for a brief time. But I remember the camp well, and as I say, a couple of families came to our house a couple of times for lunch. They were asking, you know, what's our potatoes and stuff like that. You know, how do we do roast potatoes? They hadn't seen that sort of thing. And they introduced me to curry, which I like very much still. Some of them must have been quite wealthy in Uganda, and one of them showed us suitcases when we went down to the camp where they'd stripped the lining out and put the money behind to get it out, and in old coats as well, down the sleeves. You know, so, but it was very distressing for them that they lost their livelihoods. Some of them were quite wealthy, and you could see that on them. They were very well educated and smartly dressed as best they could with the clothes at the time. I know my father was stationed in the army camp, and he was saying, I hope they give them more coal than we used to do because the billets are freezing. And everything was new there. They put new cookers in everywhere there, lighting and that, did the best that they could for them. You could see they'd worked hard, they'd got their businesses, and it was Idi Amin to throw them out like that and to take their wealth, basically, and their knowledge of finance and whether they were shopkeepers or what, I can't remember now. But they were very kind people as well. And years later, when I joined the ambulance service, the lads that were working at that time when the Ugandan Asians were here were basically saying little things that happened, you know, while they were there. And the women wouldn't go into the ambulance unless there was a nurse with them for, again, religious purposes, I suppose. And it was difficult to diagnose things without, so we had to take them to the hospitals. We were fascinated. You know, one of the lads, he took his turban off, showed us how to put it back on. I must have got a picture somewhere, but I can't find it, of me wearing a turban. And he must have been a Sikh, if I remember, because he had very long hair, which he used to put up under the turban. And we were fascinated by the designs and, well, the language as well. Listening to, you know, we speak Welsh, and But the Indians' language was fascinating to us. And I can remember, as I said once before, in school, we had to have assembly in the morning. Well, the Asian population, or school children, they didn't have to have assembly, so I was thinking, I think I'll convert to be a Muslim so I didn't have to go to assembly in the morning. The ones I knew, as I say, they appeared very well educated, well spoken. You could see that some of them would get on as, you know, if they, whatever they did in Uganda, they had businesses there. So, you know, it was very hard on them to have all that and then to lose it all. I think it was a big shock that, you know, Idi Amin had kicked them out. My grandfather went through the Second World War, so he saw a lot of refugees and stuff like that. And his comment was straight away, we've got to help them. And he said, I don't want them to go through what I've seen. Obviously, they were coming to a different place, not being bombed out, but it's still such a shock to them and hard on them. And I think that's why they were taken to the hearts of many people in town here. And my grandfather was very interested in politics, anything like that, and we were always kept up to date with the news, and then to actually talk to the people and see them ourselves. And quite a bit came back to my grandfather at what he'd seen, and as he'd worked in the camp there as well before when he was army, and he was very worried about them, especially the kids, and were they getting enough food. When it closed down, it was a big loss to the town. And I think in some ways we thought with the Ugandan Asians coming here we were going to get something back, because a lot of the businesses relied on it. And I think most of them, when the Asians came here, were trying to help as much as we could.